Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caden's Corner. My name is Caden Kubler. I am so happy to be streaming live for you guys for the first time for this entire football season. We're going to do streams 2 times a week, every Friday and every Monday, breaking down the weekend for you guys in college football, in the NFL. And ladies and gentlemen, this long, grueling offseason is finally over with. We've got football week 0 starting tomorrow in Ireland between Kansas State and Iowa State, a top 25 matchup. The best time of the year is here. It's like Christmas morning tomorrow. You get to wake up, you get college game day, and then you get beautiful college football all day long. I am so excited to finally be able to talk about something that's not the long, grueling offseason, all these rumors, everything that we'll get into in the NFL, the Micah Parsons contract dispute, Matthew Stafford finally being healthy, Anthony Richardson being benched. We'll talk about that later in the show, but for right now, we're talking about college football because college football starts tomorrow, and I've got all the predictions for you guys. I'm going to be breaking down the entire college football playoff bracket along with some dark horses, some sleepers that I like. I am so excited to get right into it. Let's first hop right into our 12-team bracket. There are a few changes this year. As you know, in the past, it would be your top 4 seeds from your Power 4 conferences. So your ACC, your SEC, your Big 10, and your Big 12 would be your 1 through 4 seeds. Now it's different. Now it's your best teams no matter what. So it's going to be different. You can have a team like Penn State and Ohio State that could both be inside of the top 4, Alabama and Clemson and or Miami all getting inside of the top 4. So it's completely different this year. I'm excited. I think they did a good job of reseeding it. I don't think they need to expand it, but as of right now, we've got a beautiful wide open 12-team bracket. Tomorrow we have some massive implications in the Big 12 with Kansas State and Iowa State. Let's get into our first 4 here, and I'm excited to see the reaction from these first 4 teams. We'll start at the number 12 spot where I have the Boise State Broncos. They obviously made the college football playoff last year, led behind Ashton Jeanty, who's one of the most dynamic players in the entire country. He was so awesome to watch. I have this team ultimately getting back into the college football playoff again as our group of 5 champion. The Mountain West looks very easy for them to try and dominate again. They actually have shorter odds to win the Mountain West this year than they did last year with one of the best players in the entire nation in Ashton Jeanty. So I think with Maddox Musin returning, their quarterback, they're going to have a lot of production. This defense is still one of the best in the country. This Boise State team is going to be a really good group of 5 team. Let's hop into our number 11 seed where I have the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Boy, am I excited about this one. I think that Nebraska is going to be so good this year. This is finally the year that they turn it around in year 3 under Matt Rule. I've been so vocal about it all off season. Let me break this down for you guys. In year 3 of Matt Rule, this is the year where he turns it around. He did so at Temple. He did so at Baylor. He turned Temple into a 10-win team in year 3. He turned Baylor into a legitimate contender, had them up to the 8th ranked team in the country at one point in year 3. And at Nebraska right now, he's ahead of schedule. He won a bowl game for the first time in 7 years in Nebraska. In year 2. Now in year 3, everything is sank. This team is going to be even better. They upgraded this offensive line for Dylan Raiola. They upgraded this receiving core. The play caller spot is even better with Dana Holgorsen. The fact of the matter is they had a true freshman quarterback in Dylan Raiola who had no help last year. The wide receiving core was terrible. This running game was not efficient whatsoever. The offensive line was all right, and the play calling spot was just terrible. Now everything is so much better. I think that Nebraska is going to be this sleeper team, just like Indiana last year. They're going to shock everybody and get into the college football playoff with the last non-group of 5 spot. At our number 10 seed, I have the exact same situation going on here with an Indiana-like team in the Illinois Fighting Irish. I think that this team's going to be really good. I look at Illinois right now as a team with Luke Altmaier, some of the most returning starters in college football. They are going to be really good, and it all starts with this offense. It all starts with Luke Altmaier because they have, 16 returning starters. That's 9 returning starters on offense. That is some of the most in the entire nation, the second most actually in the entire nation. They were really good last year. Their schedule's really easy this year. I look at Illinois as a team that could really surprise some people just like Indiana did. So you have Nebraska and Illinois that are my 2 hot takes. I know I'm really Big Ten dependent right now. I still have Oregon making the college football playoff. They have a question mark in my opinion right now. Dante Moore is a sensational quarterback. He originally committed to Oregon when he was in high school. Then he decommitted, went to UCLA. Things didn't go great. Then he goes to Oregon again now, and everybody was hyping him up so much. Tez Johnson, a lot of the guys in this receiving corps last year were saying, Dante Moore is going to be a Heisman contender this year, and I absolutely believe it. Oregon has produced 2 Heisman candidates in a row. If you remember, Bo Nix 2 years ago, Dylan Gabriel last year. Why can't Dante Moore do the exact same thing? Hopefully their number 1 target in Evan Stewart isn't out all of this season, but they are going to need him if this Oregon team is going to legitimately compete for a national championship. But I love this foundation that Dan Lanning is putting in place, and I believe that they are going to continue to be a contender this year. I'm really excited to see what Dante Moore can do, and not enough people are talking about him potentially being a Heisman candidate. Let's hop into our next 4 seeds. We have Boise State at 12, we got Nebraska at 11, we've got Illinois at 10, and we've got Oregon at 9. With our next 4, at the number 8 seed, I have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They were amazing last year. They made it in to the college football playoff. They made it all the way to the national championship, and their offense just was not there against this Ohio State team that was a team of destiny. Ohio State was so awesome last year. They were an absolute buzzsaw. Nobody could stop them. They just flatlined everybody. Now Notre Dame comes into this season with Jeremiah Love, who's probably the best running back in the nation, a guy that's not getting talked about enough to potentially be a Heisman candidate as well. They just announced this week that CJ Carr is going to be the starting quarterback. He was a former four-star in the class of 2024. I'm really excited to see what this Notre Dame team can do because they have one of the best O-lines in the country, a tremendous run game, a defense that's going to be really good. I expect Notre Dame to be back into the college football playoff and to continue to be a contender. At number 7, I have the Georgia Bulldogs. This is a team that also is not getting enough credit, not getting enough hype right now. I know they were at number 5 in the AP preseason poll. I really am a believer in this team. The SEC is an absolute bloodbath. It's a gauntlet, but I believe in Gunnar Stockton. This is a guy that really didn't get talked about a lot last year. He was somebody that came in, replaced Carson Beck in the Big 12 in the SEC championship, He came in and replaced Carson Beck. Carson Beck gets hurt right before halftime. He's going for that Hail Mary, hurts his UCL. It's Gunnar Stockton time. He does enough to beat Texas in the SEC championship, get that automatic berth for Georgia, and they ultimately lose to Notre Dame, who makes it into the national championship. But Gunnar Stockton now is going to have a little bit of a learning curve. He's going to know that he's the guy as we head into this season, and I think he is a player with a ton of moxie. He showed so much in that game in the SEC championship, and I know things didn't go the way they wanted to last year in the college football playoff. This is going to be a huge learning curve. He's going to learn a lot from that point, and I expect Georgia to still be a top team in the country. At number 6, I have my Arizona State Sun Devils. This is a team that is going to be awesome this year. They have the most returning starters in college football with 17. Ladies and gentlemen, only 22 people go out on the field in offense and defense, and they have 17 returning starters. Now, they did lose probably their most important player last year in Cam Skattebo, who's an absolute weapon for this team. He took the nation by storm in the college football playoff last year. Yes, they are losing him. I'm still expecting this team to be awesome this year. It starts with Sam Leavitt, starts with Jordan Tyson, an All-American receiver who they did not have last year in postseason football. Sam Leavitt's going to have his number 1 guy. It's going to be those two lighting up college football, and it's going to be those two lighting up the Big 12, in my opinion. The Big 12 is wide open. Not enough people are talking about Arizona State to just absolutely wipe them away. Sam Leavitt, Jordan Tyson, they're going to be awesome. This ASU defense is going to be even better. They are returning 12 of 11 starters on the defensive side of the football. I love what Kenny Dillingham is building at Arizona State. He talked about it. They want to become a national brand, and they have to do so by continuing to put their foot down in the Big 12. They did it last year. They're going to do it again this year. They're not getting enough credit for what they can truly do because this can be one of the best teams in the nation. I really like the Arizona State Sun Devils. At number 5, before we hop into our final 4, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes, the reigning, defending, undisputed champions of last year. They were so awesome to watch, but they got gutted. They lost so many players. They lost Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, so many guys on the defensive side of the ball. But the good news is for this team is that they probably have the number 1 player in the entire country in Jeremiah Smith. And they probably have the number one player defensively in the country in Caleb Downs at the safety position. They have a team that's still going to be excellent to watch. They just announced that Julian Sayin would be the starting quarterback this week. He was the number 5. He was the 5-star quarterback. He was the number 3 quarterback in the class of 2024. Very highly touted recruit. He's now the guy ready to go. I saw this hilarious analogy on Twitter that's like, listen, he just turned 16 years old. He just got a brand new Lamborghini. And all you've got to do is just put 2 hands on the steering wheel and just go very soft on the gas pedal. He doesn't have to go too crazy. You've got Jeremiah Smith. You've got a good offensive line. This is going to be a great team. Julian Sayin, I believe, is going to be a really dynamic quarterback. And there's a reason that he has the top 10 odds to win the Heisman this year. Do not sleep on the Ohio State Buckeyes just because they won the national championship last year. They got gutted in terms of the players that they lost. In 1 week, we get to see them go up against Texas, who I have, by no surprise, inside of the top 4. This is going to be a really good team. Excuse me on that one. I don't know what happened there. All right, our Final 4 right here. These are our Final 4 teams here in the college football playoff. At number 4, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama is going to be awesome this year. I'm all in on this team. I've heard so much negative buzz around the Crimson Tide because, they didn't make the college football playoff last year in year 1 under Kalen DeBoer. Let's pump the brakes a little bit here. Everyone take a deep breath. Alabama is going to be just fine. Kalen DeBoer is a winner. He's finally got his roots, his grasp on this organization per se. And I believe that they've got the right guy under center in Ty Simpson, who's been in college football for 3 years now. He's a redshirt junior. This is what we've seen with a lot of quarterbacks in college football as of late. Look at Cam Ward. He was in college football for 5 seasons, increased his draft stock, became the number 1 overall pick. Look at Bo Nix. Look at Jaden Daniels. Guys that stayed in college football for a while, helped develop, increase their draft stock. Now, it's a different situation with Ty Simpson because he's never started a game before, but he's been in college football. He's waited his turn. I love the approach, the demeanor that he's taken throughout this entire situation. I believe that this Alabama team is going to be really good, and it's going to start with Ty Simpson. He's another guy that has a top 10 odds to win the Heisman Trophy. You've got a tremendous receiving core, and it starts with Ryan Williams, the 17-year-old sensation last year. I think you can debate, outside of Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams was probably the second best receiver in the entire country. You've got Jam Miller, who's going to come back around week 3, week 4 at the running back position, who is tremendous. This is a good defense that was top 10 in terms of points per game. Alabama has it all right now. They've got one of the best offensive lines, headlined by Caden Proctor. This is another one of those situations with Julian Sayin, but you've got Ty Simpson, who's got more experience. He's learned the college game more, even though he doesn't have those starts. Don't press down on the gas too hard. Don't accelerate too fast. 2 hands on the steering wheel. And by week 6, we might see him throw his arm out the window and start bumping some, little baby, whatever you want to say. This team is going to be really good. Alabama is going to be a top 4 seed, although I do not have them winning the SEC. I have the Texas Longhorns winning the SEC, led by Arch Manning. By no surprise, I can't wait to watch Arch Manning play. I really cannot wait to watch him play. This dude is going to be so good. He's going to be so good. I know that it's like not a cool thing to talk about Arch in a positive way. Like, stop glazing Arch. No, he's going to be so good. Like, I cannot wait. It would surprise me, quite frankly, if he didn't go pro after this year. I know that's kind of been, in the tea leaves, like, is Arch Manning going to stay another year in college football? Personally, I think if he has the year that everyone's projecting, he is the front runner to win the Heisman Trophy currently on every sports book. If he has the season that we're all expecting and Texas has the season that we all think they're going to have, he's going to go number 1 overall. Let's stop this right now. Everybody already loves the demeanor that he has. They already love the approach that he's taken. He sat 2 years behind Quinn Ewers with a big smile on his face. He said, I'm not going to transfer. You don't got to worry about me. Even though I'm the number 1 player in the nation, you don't got to worry about me whatsoever because I'm that good. I know that I'm going to be that good, and I know that I'm going to go really high in the NFL draft, and I'm going to be a day 1 playmaker. And that's what Arch Manning is going to do. He's going to be a day 1 playmaker for Texas this year. And if he has this season that we're all expecting, he's going to go pro. He's going to go number 1 overall. This Texas team is going to be unbelievable. We get to see them against Ohio State, the reigning defending champs, in week 1. This is going to be must-see TV. I can't wait to watch it, but Arch Manning is going to be so special this year. I can't wait to see what he does. The Texas Longhorns will win the SEC. At number 2, I have the Clemson Tigers. Clemson is going to be so good this year. This is a team that I've flirted back and forth with, like, will they win the national championship? I can firmly say that they might. They are that good. I've gone back and forth so much between them and the other team you're going to see here in a few minutes. Clemson's going to be really, really good this year. And it all starts with Cade Klubnik. We saw so many quarterbacks like a Drew Aller, like a Cade Klubnik, so many guys come back to college football this year and say, I want to increase my draft stock. And Cade Klubnik is one of those guys that can play himself into the number 1 overall pick, in my opinion. He's accurate as all get out. He also has a tremendous demeanor. He could be a top 10 pick for this upcoming season. And he could also be a guy that can win the Heisman Trophy. We all understand that to win the Heisman, you've got to correlate the wins along with stats. This is the best offense that Dabo Swinney's had in the Cade Klubnik era. They have a tremendous receiving core. They have a good run game, good offensive line, and a great defense, and a cupcake schedule. That always helps. This is going to be a team now with Cade Klubnik that has a lot of expectations, but in reality, they're going to do it. Cade Klubnik can play himself into the number 1 overall pick. They should dominate the ACC. I look at Clemson, it's like they're all the way up here, and like Miami and everyone else is significantly lower than them. I think Clemson's going to be so good. They're going to be a buzzsaw in the ACC. Nobody is going to sniff them. And at number 1, I have the Penn State Nittany Lions. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the team that I have been all in on this offseason. I cannot wait to see what Penn State does. They are going to be so good. And it all starts with Drew Aller, another one of those guys that decided to come back, try and increase his draft stock. They have a two-headed hydra at the running back position in Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton. They have, 15 returning starters. 9 of them come offensively. They did lose Tyler Warren, who is a huge impact playmaker. But if there's one thing that I can say, this is probably the best offense that James Franklin has ever had at Penn State. And you just don't see that. You don't see that very often. It's always been Penn State. Okay, you've got Ohio State and you've got Michigan that are leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. No, right now, Penn State is going to be leaps and bounds ahead of your Ohio States and your Michigans and your Oregons. Penn State is going to be that good this year. And I believe they have a very favorable schedule considering how tough of schedules these SEC teams have. Penn State should be a lock to win the Big 12, in my opinion. And I believe that being the number 1 seed in the entirety of the college football world is absolutely attainable for them. There are a lot of expectations on this team, but I believe that they will ultimately get it done. Let's cut it down to 8 teams here, folks. Let's get to our college football playoff quarterfinals. Ooh, I can't wait for this one. Boom. Let's start up top. At number 12, we have the Boise State Broncos against the Ohio State Buckeyes. By no surprise, I've got Ohio State winning this one here. I love what Ohio State did this offseason. With all things considered, they lost a ton of guys, but they get Julian Sayin. I think Julian Sayin is going to be excellent for this offense. I like Ohio State to take care of Boise State pretty handedly here. I think Ohio State's going to be really good. They're probably going to be in the Big Ten championship, if I'm being quite honest with you guys, against Penn State. The Big Ten this year, I'm not too sure they're going to be great. I think it's a pretty big drop-off. After you have Penn State, you've got like Ohio State, you've got Michigan, you've got Oregon, you've got Illinois, and then I think maybe another tier. It's like Nebraska, USC. So we'll see with how the Big Ten is going to be this year, but I believe that Ohio State will be pretty tremendous. In our 9-8 matchup, we've got Oregon against Notre Dame. I think Oregon's going to win this one here. I really like what Dante Moore can be. I love his upside. I think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. He's going to be one of the guys that we're going to be talking about, like, okay, he could be, the Heisman front runner the year after. Hopefully they can get Evan Stewart back at this point. If they can get him back, watch out for Oregon to really make a deep run here. And then Nebraska ASU. This hurts my soul here because I currently go to Arizona State, but I am a massive Nebraska fan. I've got the Big Red winning a playoff game. Now, I promise you I'm not on anything here, and this may be either the best take I've ever had or the worst take I've ever had, but Nebraska is all the way back. History repeats itself. Matt Rule in year 3 and the Cornhuskers winning in the 90s. They'll bring it back. Give me the Cornhuskers to knock off ASU in the first round. And then we have Illinois against Georgia. I believe that Georgia's going to win this one here. I think that Georgia is going to be really good. This is going to be a tough second round matchup for Georgia and Clemson. But I've got Georgia beating Illinois. We've got some comments flooding in right now. I'm sorry, Brady. Sorry for your Sun Devils. Garrett as well. Colorado, we'll talk about them here in a little bit. We'll talk about some other teams. I'll go through some of the questions. But let's hop into the semifinals right now. Boom. Alabama, Ohio State. Must-see TV in the quarterfinal. Give me Alabama to move on. This team is going to be really, really good this year. I love what Ty Simpson can be. I love what this can be one of the best offenses in football. Ty Simpson is one of these guys that he can play himself into a first-round pick, in my opinion. Why can't he play himself into a first-round pick? Why can't he? He's going to be awesome this year. Ryan Williams is going to be so good. This defense is going to be tremendous. One of the best offenses in football. Give me Alabama to knock off Ohio State. Then we've got a Big Ten matchup. We've got Oregon against Penn State. Give me Penn State to knock off the Oregon Ducks. I believe that Penn State is destined to get to the national championship. Oregon is just in their way. Give me Penn State. Then we've got Nebraska and Texas, a little throwback rivalry. I believe that Texas will win this one, unfortunately. It hurts my soul. It hurts myself to say it because I want Nebraska to win it all, but they're not going to do it. Texas with Arch Manning, so legit. Arch is going to do nasty things to this Cornhuskers defense. They will make it into the semifinal. And in our last quarterfinal game, we have Georgia against Clemson. Give me the Clemson Tigers. Clemson is inevitable. What a beautiful Final Four we have. Alabama, Penn State, Texas, Clemson. You've got four quarterbacks that could all be trying to get the number one overall pick. Now, probably Ty Simpson won't be in that range, honestly. He won't be in that range, but you've got Drew Aller, Arch Manning, Cade Klubnik that are all going to be trying to play themselves in to the number one overall pick. Man, this is going to be a tremendous second round here. Let's see what our championship's going to look like. Boom! Penn State, Clemson. Oh my goodness. I'm so fired up about this. I believe that Penn State is going to beat Alabama. Penn State's going to beat Alabama. I'm expecting the defense to be tuned up at this point. Penn State's always been known for their defense. They've always been so great on that side of the ball. And I expect James Franklin to have this defense tuned up. I believe they're going to beat Alabama. They're going to be able to neutralize this explosive offensive attack. I think Drew Aller at this point is going to exercise some of these demons per se that he had in the semifinal last year. If you remember kind of the infamous photo, he puts his hands on his head after he throws that just inexcusable pick to try and go win the game late. Notre Dame answers with a field goal and Penn State goes down in flames. Well, now it's going to be a different situation. He's going to take down Alabama to get to the national championship. Drew Aller redeems himself. In our other semifinal matchup, we have Texas versus Clemson. Two tremendous teams here. Arch Manning and Cade Klubnik could legitimately be playing for the number one overall pick right now. The buzz around this game is going to be crazy. I would expect Texas to be a slight favorite in this game, but if I had to take a team, I got to take Clemson. I think Cade Klubnik's going to be spectacular this year. Dabo Swinney has been in this position more, so I trust his coaching experience more than Texas. I think this is the game that reminds the world, like, Clemson is still one of the best teams in, this last decade or so, even though they've been off for a few years. No, they're going to be right back in this position. Clemson gets to the national championship against Penn State. And ladies and gentlemen, I have Penn State winning the national championship. Penn State gets it done. They complete the three-peat and they win the national championship. We saw Michigan do it 2 years ago. We saw Ohio State do it last year. The Big Ten proves that they are the best conference in all of college football. This is a team that, like I said, has 14 returning starters. 9 of them come on the offensive side of the ball. The biggest question mark with Penn State over the last few years, and in particular in the James Franklin era, is it's like, can they get it done offensively? We all understand their defense is going to propel them. It's going to keep them in every single game. It did it last year against Ohio State. Their defense literally almost played them into winning that game. Ohio State won it late. Penn State has got to step up on the offensive side of the ball this year. There are no more excuses. Drew Aller came back to try and play himself into the number one overall pick. There are reports this offseason that had Drew Aller hopped into the NFL draft the Cleveland Browns would have taken him at number 2 overall. Now, that was a report. Obviously, nothing is for sure, but Drew Aller is this guy that's 6'5", 240 pounds, an absolute gunslinger. He's become more mobile. He's a guy that, honestly, I was enamored with this offseason as a player that could really be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. And I think if he can just be even a little more mobile, show off that leg moving a little bit more, teams are going to be absolutely salivating to get their hands on Drew Aller. They've got a tremendous run game, a tremendous offensive line. Yes, the loss to Tyler Warren is going to be huge, but I've got to trust the experience of Drew Aller, the experience of him being in this position last year, throwing that interception, redeeming himself. I'm going to trust the fact that James Franklin will have this defense tuned up and ready to go. I believe that Penn State will win the national championship. They pull off this three-peat. Wow. College football is all the way back, ladies and gentlemen. It's all the way back. I'm so excited for tomorrow. We get a top 25 matchup between Iowa State and Kansas State that's going to have massive implications on the Big 12. The Big 12 is kind of wide open this year. You've got Arizona State that obviously won it last year. Kansas State, Iowa State, 2 teams that are going to be trying to ultimately get into the college football playoff. And if they're going to do so, their route is through the Big 12. My official prediction, let's go through the slate of week 0 right now before I kind of hop into some hot takes. Let's check out some comments. We've got some interesting names going on in there right now. But I'll address some comments. So if you guys have any comments right now or any questions about college football teams, go ahead and ask away. I'll be addressing those. But let's go through this week 0 slate here in college football. Like I said, we'll start it out tomorrow in Dublin, Ireland, between Iowa State and Kansas State. Kansas State here is a 3.5-point favorite. I think that the Wildcats get this one done. I like Avery Johnson a lot to take another step this year. This is a quarterback that can play himself into one of the better dual threats in the nation. A quarterback that not a lot of people are talking about. He needs to take another step if this Kansas State team is going to truly be a contender. They lost at home to Arizona State last year with a chance to really take a firm grasp of the Big 12, and Avery Johnson's going to have to be the guy if Kansas State is really going to take that next step. But I like Kansas State to start out strong here to ultimately win this game against Iowa State. Iowa State is going to be good this year. They're going to be a contender. They've obviously got Rocco Becht returning, but they lost 2 key receivers to the draft this offseason. Their schedule is pretty favorable, though. They're going to get, although they play Kansas State and Ireland, they're going to get a shot to really knock off Arizona State later on in the season. That looks like week 9. So they're going to get a chance to knock off Arizona State, and all of their tougher games are at home. BYU lost Retzlaff, so they're going to be a completely different team as well. Ultimately, the Big 12 is wide open. I like Arizona State to run it back, but I like Kansas State to pull off this first one here. All right, let's go to UNLV versus Idaho State. If you remember the name Alex Orji, he transferred from Michigan to UNLV. He's going to be splitting reps tomorrow against Idaho State, which, isn't a great sign ultimately for him, but I hope that he wins this job. He's one of the most electric quarterbacks in terms of running the football in all of college football. So I think Alex Orji and this UNLV team will take care of Idaho State pretty handily. UNLV is a team that can play themselves into that group of 5 spot. I know I talked about Boise State, and that's ultimately my prediction, but UNLV, I believe they have the second shortest odds to be that group of 5 winner. UNLV is going to be really solid this year, and I would expect that Alex Orji ultimately wins this job. They're going to have a chance to beat Boise State on the road about in the middle of their schedule, but this is not going to be an easy schedule for UNLV. But look out for Alex Orji and look out for the UNLV Rebels to potentially play themselves into that group of 5 spot. At 3:30 on Fox, we've got Fresno State against Kansas. Jalen Daniels, not Jaden Daniels, Jalen Daniels, and the Kansas State Jayhawks will play Fresno State. I like Kansas to pull this one out here. Kansas has always been a team that's kind of been a thorn in people's side. They've regressed over the last few years, but like 2 years ago, they were in the running to try and make it into the Big 12 championship. They kind of fell apart, but this is a team that if they can get hot, if Jalen Daniels can put it all together, he's got a lot of experience in college football. They could potentially take a stab at the Big 12 as well. So I like Kansas to win this one. They're more than a 2-touchdown favorite. All right, we've got Sam Houston against Western Kentucky. Unfortunately, do not know anything about either one of these teams. It looks like Western Kentucky's a big favorite, so I'll take them as well. And then in our nighttime game, we've got Stanford against Hawaii. I like Hawaii to win this one. Week 0 is almost here. I cannot wait for these games. Let's do a little transition here into the NFL. We've talked a lot about ultimately college football, but let's transition here into the NFL. We've got so much to talk about. We're in kind of this weird zone right now where we've got a week and a half until Thursday where we've got the Cowboys and Eagles in our opening night game. And then, we've got our first full Sunday slate a few days after that, but we're in this weird zone right now where there's not too much news. The preseason, we've got a few games this weekend. We've seen Jackson Dart absolutely tear it up in the preseason. Shedeur had that awesome game in the preseason. We've seen some good quarterback play so far, but we've almost got NFL football here, and we've got some big storylines to talk about. Let's first discuss Anthony Richardson and this entire kind of debacle that's gone on in Indianapolis. I think the best word to use for the Anthony Richardson situation is malpractice. This was a guy that was taken 4th overall 2 years ago by the Indianapolis Colts. They took him as a raw prospect, a guy that was going to be a project overall. He was going to be a project, but you knew that coming into it. He only had 13 starts in college football, but everybody mocked him as Cam Newton 2.0. They mocked him as a guy that was going to be so good in the NFL, had a higher ceiling than Caleb Williams. That's the type of thing that people were saying about Anthony Richardson. They thought he was going to be better than Bryce Young, better than CJ Stroud. People were enamored with Anthony Richardson. Now, 2 years later, they benched the dude. They've only given him 15 starts. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Anthony Richardson has been perfect throughout this entire equation, but how are you going to start Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson? How are you going to do it? Daniel Jones is about to start his 70th game in the NFL. Anthony Richardson got 15 chances. I know he tapped out. I know that, he shouldn't have done that. And as a starting quarterback in the NFL, as a franchise guy, you don't tap out when you're down by the goal line. But you know what? Shane Steichen admitted when he drafted Anthony Richardson that he was going to be a project, and the only way to get him more reps was by playing him because he only had 13 starts in college football. He dealt with injuries over the last 2 years. I think he did a good job of tuning up his mindset. Quite frankly, I think he did a good job of really transitioning that after he got benched when he tapped out. The Colts were really offended by that, and they should have been. They should have been offended by that. We all talked about it. The media, obliterated him after he did that. He changed his mindset. I would say right now, this is a desperation move from the Colts front office, from Shane Steichen and everyone involved. In the NFL, you get about 3 years. You get about 3 years if you're lucky. If you show that you can, or putting your culture into an organization. If you can show that you are doing the right things, taking the right steps, maybe you got a young quarterback. Shane Steichen's had 2 years in Indianapolis. He's 17-17. He's going into year 3. You can see kind of in the tea leaves that maybe his seat is heating up a little bit. It's year 3. He was a part of the Eagles team when they when they got to the Super Bowl a few years ago, Is it in the tea leaves that his seat might be getting a little hot? So what he's going to do is start a guy that gives them a higher floor instead of a guy that gives them a way higher ceiling, because that's what Anthony Richardson does. Yes, the mistakes are going to be there. The turnovers are going to be there. The incompletions are going to be there. The inaccuracy is going to be there. We get all of that. But you took Anthony Richardson 4th overall to be a guy that can transcend this franchise, to be a guy that is unbelievable. And now they're giving up on him. We've seen this a lot in the NFL, the bust comeback story. It happened with Geno Smith. It happened with Sam Darnold. It happened with Baker Mayfield, honestly. And I'm not saying that Bryce Young was a bust comeback, but Dave Canales benched him last year. And then in those final few games when he came back, Bryce Young played some good football. If Anthony Richardson's time is over in Indianapolis, somebody else is going to get him and they're going to turn him into gold. And that's going to be a project that somebody's going to be willing to take. And I don't see why you wouldn't want to do it. I think Anthony Richardson still has a lot of value. If I'm an NFL team, if I'm the Los Angeles Rams and I know I've got 2 more years left of Matthew Stafford, go get Anthony Richardson. Let him sit and develop behind a Hall of Fame quarterback who won a Super Bowl a few years ago. That leads me into my next point here. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford is finally healthy. He's back out on the field. I know that was a big concern, something that a lot of people were talking about in the media. What is Matthew Stafford going to look like for this upcoming season with the back problems? You know, when you're 38 years old and you have a back injury, before the season even starts, you're probably not going to get healthier as the season progresses. That's just kind of, obvious. That's obvious logic. Your back's not just going to magically heal as the football season progresses, as you're going to be taking huge hits. So it's really big for them to get as healthy as possible to try and get Matthew Stafford back and ready to go. Because this is the team that can go win the Super Bowl this year, ladies and gentlemen. This is the team that I believe is the best in the NFC. I believe they are going to win the NFC and get back to the Super Bowl because the Los Angeles Rams are complete on offense, and this defense is going to take another step. You've got Davante Adams, who's now going to be upgrading this spot for Cooper Kupp, who hadn't had a 1,000-yard season in 3 years. You've now got Puka Nacua, who is a top 10 receiver in football, Kyren Williams, Matthew Stafford fully healthy. This can be one of the best offenses in football, no doubt about it. And this defense is going to take another step. You've got Jared Verse, who won the Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. You had Braden Fisk on this defensive line as well, who's the runner-up for the Defensive Rookie of the Year. This team got gutted against the Philadelphia Eagles, who ultimately won it all, but they gave Philadelphia their toughest matchup of the entire postseason. And if Saquon Barkley doesn't hit home run after home run after home run, the Los Angeles Rams find themselves in the NFC Championship. And I like them to beat the Washington Commanders with a rookie quarterback and get to the Super Bowl. I honestly do. So for the Rams, they've got to make sure Matthew Stafford is healthy. And if there's one thing we know about Stafford is that he's a tough SOB. He's so tough. He is gonna gut it out. And I saw him get knocked out in the playoffs 2 years ago against the Lions. This dude was like literally concussed, and he kept playing and nearly won that game. Matthew Stafford's one of the toughest quarterbacks in football. He's gonna be ready to go regardless, but the Rams need him ready to go. Micah Parsons might be a Los Angeles Ram. What if I told you that? What if I told you that I had a dream that Les Snead, one of the most aggressive general managers in all of football, who's made win-now moves before, going out and getting Jalen Ramsey, going out and getting Matthew Stafford when he traded Jared Goff, who just took them to the Super Bowl, going out and get Brandon Cooks. Les Snead has never been a general manager that's held back. He's understood the situation, the win-now situation that the Rams were in, and they won a Super Bowl. They capitalized. The Rams are in an interesting spot right now because they can not only win the Super Bowl this year, but they can retool and get to the Super Bowl for the years to come. Jared Verse is unbelievable. Braden Fisk, Puka Nacua is still young. Kyren Williams is young. You've got probably about a year or two of Matthew Stafford, but I think Sean McVay is going to find his guy at the quarterback spot. He's going to be able to figure it out. What if the Rams give up a boatload of draft picks, a young player or two, and say, Micah Parsons, we want you? Because you want to know why they might do that? Aaron Donald said he'll come out of retirement if the Rams get Micah. That's the best defensive line that's ever been assembled, if that happens. Aaron Donald, arguably the greatest defensive player in NFL history outside of, who am I trying to say here? Night Train Lane. You have Micah Parsons. You have Jared Verse, who won the Defensive Rookie of the Year. You have Braden Fisk, who's the runner-up for the Defensive Rookie of the Year. You can legitimately assemble the best defensive line in football, along with an offense that can be the best in football as well. Why wouldn't Les Snead go out there and do that? It makes so much sense for Les Snead to go be aggressive, go get Micah. I love that situation. Yes, Lawrence Taylor. Thank you, Garrett. Why can't they go be aggressive to go get Micah Parsons? I think they should absolutely do it. I love the thought of that. Let's stay on the trend of defenses here. I don't know how much preseason football you guys have been watching, and I know that you don't want to necessarily hold too much with preseason. You don't want to put too much weight on it. At the end of the day, The Bengals defense has been terrible. And I want to see this team compete for Super Bowls. I believe that Joe Burrow is the only quarterback that's capable of taking down Patrick Mahomes in the AFC. Josh Allen can't do it. Lamar Jackson can't do it. CJ Stroud, he's young, but I don't think he can do it. It's Joe Burrow or nothing. And this defense hasn't been worth a dang. They were terrible last year. Joe Burrow at 4-8 said, get on my back. I'm going to win 5 straight games, and I'm going to get into the playoffs. Well, they got right there. They got on the doorstep 9-8, and they didn't get it done. So what I think needs to happen for the Bengals, first of all, is they need to sign Trey Hendrickson. They need to get him back on the football field. They need to get him ready to go. Because if they don't have him, this defense is screwed. They have no good players. They have nobody that can get this done defensively. They need Joe Burrow to do it. And they re-signed T. Higgins. They re-signed Jamar Chase. They put all this money into those guys. And this is going to be one of the best offenses in football. Joe Burrow seems like the biggest lock to win the MVP ever. And I think the Bengals will get into the playoffs because that's how good Joe Burrow is. But this defense is really concerning me. It's becoming ever more clear that the Bengals need to re-sign Trey Hendrickson and get him ready to go. And Brady, that brings me into my next team in the AFC, the New England Patriots. This is going to be a team that has a massive turnaround in the AFC. And I'm all in on this team. I really believe that Mike Vrabel is the key ingredient to making the Patriots one of these next perennial contenders in the AFC. You have your tier A of the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bills, and you could probably throw the Bengals in there. But just because of last year's season, I'm going to put them in tier B. You've got your tier B teams, the Texans, Bengals, Chargers. The Patriots are going to be in that tier B after this season, and I believe that they're going to put themselves in a position to try and get into that tier A spot in the next year or two, and that's going to start with Mike Vrabel. That's going to start with the culture that they are instilling in New England. It's been rumored that, hey, New England might go try and get Micah Parsons. The GM might try and go give up a few picks to go get Micah and assemble an even better defense. They killed it defensively this offseason. They put so much emphasis defensively on this team. Mike Vrabel put a ton of emphasis on this offensive line in the trenches. We've seen that a lot recently with these new coaches. When you look at the Chargers passing up on a wide receiver going Joe Alt. When you look at the Lions, when Dan Campbell first got there, building the trenches first, going for the offensive line first. Now we're seeing the exact same thing happen with the New England Patriots. So they're going after this offensive line. They started with Will Campbell, and I believe that he's going to be this first piece to try and protect Drake May's blind side to really emphasize, okay, we're going to kick your teeth in. That's Mike Vrabel football. I don't think the Titans roster was ever ultra talented. Ryan Tannehill at one point possessed the number 1 seed in the AFC with Mike Vrabel. They got to the AFC Championship against Patrick Mahomes with Mike Vrabel. That's Mike Vrabel football. And he's bringing that now to the New England Patriots to try and revitalize this franchise. I love it. I love it. And you've got to be excited about it. You've got Stephon Diggs now on the outside, who is a day one playmaker who can finally win off the line of scrimmage. We didn't even think we'd see Drake May last year because the offensive line was so bad. It was like, let's just let Jacoby Brissett be this bridge quarterback. Now, Drake May got thrown out there halfway through the year, and he started to play some really good football. You're like, okay, this guy can be a stud. The offensive line shored up. They draft Travion Henderson, who's going to be an absolute dog, who's showed some tremendous flashes in the preseason. Cannot wait to see what Travion Henderson does. I'm worried about the wide receiver 2 spot. Kyle Williams out of Washington State's got to be the guy that emerges as the wide receiver 2 for New England, in my opinion. We've got Stephon Diggs, that wide receiver 1 spot, who's going to be a tremendous separator, a guy that can really win off the line of scrimmage for Drake May. But you've got to have a number 2 receiver that steps up. I think Kyle Williams is going to be that player that steps up. But for the Patriots, this is a team that's going to have a massive bounce back season. I cannot wait to see what Mike Vrabel does. I cannot wait to see what Drake May does. This is a tough division. I think the Dolphins are going to be a lot better. The Bills are obviously going to win it. And I'm going to dive more into my predictions next week once we get closer to the playoffs. As I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I'm going to be streaming every Monday and Friday, so make sure you guys tune in. But as of right now, we were very college football centric, and I'll finish up with a few more NFL topics here. And I want to start with Jackson Dart. This dude's been unbelievable. He's been so fun to watch. And I said coming into the draft that he would be the second quarterback taken. He is unbelievable. I actually perfectly predicted, I don't do this too often, but I actually perfectly predicted that the Giants would take Abdul Carter. They'd trade back into the first round, go get Jackson Dart. That's exactly what they did. And I feel like I've been on like the same wavelength as Jackson Dart so far throughout his career. I think he's going to be really good in New York. I think he's going to be a guy that can take the week one job. He can take it. I know Russ is the guy. I don't know how long Brian Daboll's going to play him, but man, let Jackson Dart cook. I know it was let Russ cook. Let Jackson Dart cook. He's looked unbelievable in the preseason so far. And like I said, you can't put too much weight on the preseason because it is the preseason. Like Caleb Williams and the Bears looked awesome. In the 2 drives that they had, I was ready to say, okay, the Bears might just mess around and let Caleb Williams get them into the playoffs, and Caleb Williams can be an MVP contender. And I do think the Bears are going to be really good. And I do think Caleb Williams is a guy that should not be being panicked on right now because everyone's panicking on him. But right now, you know, you've got a guy in Jackson Dart who's really phenomenal, who's a really special player, who is dynamic with his arm, who has all the moxie in the world. He's got so much swagger. You've got Malik Neighbors, who was an unbelievable receiver last year, who might already be a top 5 receiver in football. This Giants team might have the best D-line in football, quite honestly, with Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns. This is a vicious defensive line. I really think they're going to be good, but you've got to look at Jackson Dart as being a guy that can realistically start for this team and can try and make them competitive because this is a brutal division. The Commanders were unbelievable last year with their rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, and the Dallas Cowboys are going to be better. I know. Nobody wants to hear that. The Dallas Cowboys will be better. Jackson Dart will be the starter, I would say, by week 8. I really like the Giants. I think that this team is not going to be a team that you want to see, but Jackson Dart, you got to take a serious look at him being the guy. Some other smaller news, you've got Brian Robinson traded to the San Francisco 49ers for a 6th round pick. You get another backup running back for Christian McCaffrey next to Isaac Guerendo. The 49ers are going to be great this year. And I just want to talk about them real quick as we wrap up this show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. For whoever joined the first live stream of the entire football season of Caden's Corner, the 49ers are going to be all the way back. And I truly believe that. I know everybody's hit the panic button on this team. Oh, Brock Purdy's not a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. You can't pay him. The Niners paid him. Oh, now that they paid him, they can't be a team that legitimately contends in the NFC because he's not a guy that you can win because of. And, you know, I've always been a big believer of like, you've got to have a quarterback that is inside of the top 5 to top 7 that you can legitimately win because of. And you might be in the worst position in football if you are in a position where you've got like a quarterback that's anywhere in the range of like 9 to 15. And maybe that's a Dak Prescott. I don't know. Maybe that's a Kyler Murray. Jordan Love's got a lot to prove, but you look at those quarterbacks, maybe a Tua Tagovailoa. You can't just get rid of those guys, but at the same token, you're paying them $50 million a year. Look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, he's in that range right now. He's got to prove that he's a top 10 quarterback still. And I still think he can be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But you look at Tua, you look at Kyler, you look at Trevor Lawrence. Those are guys that are inside of that 10 to 15 range. That's like, well, we drafted them really high. We can't just really let them walk out the door. Oh, but they're commanding $50 million? Whoa, that is way too much of the salary cap. Now you're not competitive, and you've got to win because of them. That's the predicament that the San Francisco 49ers are in right now. You've got to be able to win because of Brock Purdy. They've had all these nice flashy weapons offensively. They've had a great defense, one of the best head coaches in Kyle Shanahan. You've got to be able to win because of Brock Purdy, and if you can't, the money's not worth it. In my opinion, you can win because of Brock Purdy. This is a guy that went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes, nearly beat him in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. The 49ers get like historically injured last year. McCaffrey goes down for the season. Ayuk goes down for the season. Their first round pick in Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver position, gets shot in the chest. Brock Purdy deals with a little bit of an injury. Kittle goes down for some time. Trent Williams. It felt like everybody got injured. And I'm not even talking about everyone defensively too. And the Niners, this was the offseason where we started to learn who they're keeping, who they're getting rid of. They trade Deebo Samuel. They lose a ton of guys defensively. They are still more than talented enough on the offensive side of the ball to be a team that wins the NFC West, a team that wins 13 plus games. They've got the easiest schedule in football, ladies and gentlemen. The easiest schedule in football. They still have got Christian McCaffrey, who's unbelievable. Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. George Kittle, unbelievable. He's back. He got a new deal. Juwan Jennings, the way he stepped up when Ayuk and Deebo were both gone, was unbelievable. Juwan Jennings is one of the most underrated receivers in football. And then you've got Ricky Pearsall, who in the second half of the year really turned it on. This is still a ultra-talented offense. They've now got Brian Robinson, who's going to back up McCaffrey. This team, relax. They're going to be really good. Easy schedule in football. I'm going to pump the brakes on the hot take that I'm going to give you guys as of right now. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the first ever stream of Caden's Corner of this entire football season. We've got a great slate of games tomorrow. A top 25 matchup between Iowa State and Kansas State. I'm going to be your go-to spot for football all season. I thank you guys for making me a part of your day, watching this stream. If you guys want to keep up with me throughout the rest of the week, you can find me on TikTok. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at Caden's Corner. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be live at the exact same time on Monday at 12 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern. I appreciate you guys watching. Have a great rest of your day. See you guys.